Thank you for watching, liking, commenting, sharing, and subscribing right now.
By GoDaddy.com. This phone call sponsored by GoDaddy.com. This phone call sponsored by GoDaddy.com.
Call from.
This is Chris. It's Elvis. He's calling back from the grave. Awesome. Thanks, Elvis. It's good to hear from you. It's been a while, hasn't it? Hey, are you still fat? It doesn't matter because you were always ugly. 888.
This phone call sponsored by GoDaddy.com. This phone call sponsored by GoDaddy.com. This phone call sponsored by.
This is Chris.
Hey, Chris, what's going on? It's Blue Fox.
Hey, Blue Fox.
Hey, someone was saying a few days back that you want to know about Black Box, the actual shell itself.
Oh, it's a Windows shell?
Yeah, it is a Windows shell for XP.
Okay. You use it?
And I use it religiously. I would take a bullet for it.
Why?
Just because the fact that I never liked the actual OS shell for XP. I hated having the start menu and a really big taskbar. So with Black Box, I can totally customize it to how I want. And the fact is I can have multiple desktops on one screen. So it takes that nice Linux format of having multiple desktops and putting it in XP.
What about exploring files? Browsing?
It uses the same type of format, so like it still uses your My Computer,
See,
My Documents type file structure.
So what Blue Fox is talking about?
It really replaces the prettiness.
He's talking about replacing the Windows Explorer shell, or the default interface, the Windows Explorer, the Start menu, etc., etc. I'd assume Black Box is free?
Yeah, Black Box is completely open source.
Skinnable?
Yeah, if you want me to, I can send you a link.
See, my issue, yeah, go ahead, paste it into the chat room. My issue with a lot of those shells, and believe me, I've tried a lot of them, even going all the way back to, well, Plugin for Windows was a nice shell replacement. Then I used Lightstep for a little while. But the UI ultimately just turned me off. I mean, I just could not find an interface that really I wanted to use more than the default Windows experience. And performance-wise, it never really offered that much more. Maybe it's worth a shot. Maybe I'll take a look at the screenshots.
It's definitely interesting just because of the fact that it's how it works itself. For instance, a lot of people don't like the fact that you have to right-click to get to your Start menu, but with Black Box, you can actually hit the Windows key is actually accessible. So if you actually use the Windows key, your Start menu does pop up. But the nice thing about it is that there's so many themes that you can download out there and install. It takes 2 seconds to install.
It's worth a shot.
So
all right. We'll take a look.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool.
Check it out.
All right. Thanks again, Blue Fox.
Yeah, no problem. I'll let you go. Have a good one.
Give me your little plug. It's open source, so I gave you extra time. I wanted to I'll show you this. This is a real desktop. Now, unfortunately, I tried to turn down the.
This phone call sponsored by GoDaddy.com.
Can you hear that?
This phone call sponsored by GoDaddy.com. This phone call sponsored by GoDaddy.com.
That's one of my ringtones. Hang on, New York. Hang on just a second. I want to explain this for a second. This is something called Real Desktop, real-desktop.de. It's not a shell replacement necessarily, but with it you can basically manage all the files that are on your desktop in a nice 3D environment. It isn't free, but it's very cool. I got it running in Vista finally after emailing the author and troubleshooting through it. It's definitely something to keep an eye on. This is a much better desktop experience than the one that comes with Windows.
This phone call sponsored by GoDaddy.com.
Let's take this one. This is Chris.
Take this one. This is Chris. Take this one. This is Chris.
Okay. Mute. 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 Okay. Here's a little hint when you call on a radio show or a television show or even a live guy on the internet. Turn down the volume.
This phone call sponsored by GoDaddy.com.
I know who this guy is, and I'm not going to answer that call because he's a jerk. He doesn't say anything. He just sits there and breathes heavily. And quite honestly, Dad, I'm tired of you doing that. All right, 888-747-4556.
This phone call sponsored by GoDaddy.com. This phone call sponsored by GoDaddy.com.
This is Chris.
Hey, this is Fear Bliss. I'm just asking a question because Pagan, a member, he asked this question a couple of weeks ago.
Okay.
Would Microsoft make more money if they made their own certified hardware like Macintosh?
Ooh, boy. I kind of addressed this in a blog post today. I don't know if they necessarily make more money, but if history means anything, Microsoft does okay when it comes to hardware, actually. I love Microsoft mice. I use Microsoft mice. I used to use Microsoft keyboards, and unfortunately they've kind of gone walkabout, so to speak. They haven't really released the Wireless Entertainment Desktop 8000 like they said they would about a year ago. And then, of course, Microsoft used to make wireless network devices. And in each case, they were okay. They weren't all that bad. Unfortunately, the webcams that they created were just junk. I wouldn't spend $5 on a Microsoft webcam, let alone the prices that they're asking for. If they actually went and did certified hardware, I think the user would be happy, but the entire industry would be decimated. Just because it's predicated on a model of Microsoft making the platform, the operating system, and then letting the open architecture just take over. And that's what has created this ecosystem that allows various manufacturers to survive: Dell, HP, Falcon Northwest, you name it. If they actually made their own hardware, I'd personally like to see it because I think Microsoft should own the whole experience like Apple owns the entire experience, but unfortunately I don't think they could because more than anything I think manufacturers like Dell and HP, etc. would cry foul because their sales would likely slip. Not because their hardware is any less important, it's just because of the mindset of the average consumer. They're going to see Microsoft and they're just going to assume, oh, this is what I want. For years and years and years, Intel has been branded as the platform or the processor, and AMD has done its best to, overcome that mind share. And they've done a pretty good job with the enthusiast community, but they're still very, 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 very far behind.
Hey, I was also wondering, I don't mind supporting you and everything, but do I have to pay for this call?
No.
Alright, thanks.
Why would you have to pay for the call? It's a toll-free number, 888-747-4556. If it costs you money to call, hey, you can send me money if you want. I'm not gonna turn you down if you PayPal me affiliate@lockergnome.com. I'll take your money.
This phone call sponsored by GoDaddy.com. This phone call sponsored by
Don't you love that
GoDaddy.com.
ringtone?
This phone call sponsored by
I made it myself.
GoDaddy.com.
This is Chris, and this is the last call.
Yeah, do you think that Mac will finally take over the world?
Will Mac finally take over the world? Doubtful.
Yeah.
I think it's a beautiful. We were just kind of talking about this a little while ago. I think it's a beautiful alternative to the consumer operating system known as Microsoft Windows Vista. Certainly better than XP, but because Apple doesn't, and this is almost, it's a good dovetail from the last call. Apple controls the entire experience, and because of this, their growth is going to be limited, because instead of working on partnerships with vendors and opening their platform, opening OS X and licensing it to companies like Dell or HP or you name the computer manufacturer, they're keeping it all to themselves, which of course they get a large degree of control. But I think that is also what is keeping their growth in the market limited. They have a shot right now to really grab mindshare, not just with the introduction of the iPhone, but certainly the iPod, beyond the iPhone, draws people in. The Mac Mini is a good price point for enthusiasts to walk into OS X for the first time and then just start to think, well, do I really need to live in Windows? Then take it a step further with virtual machine software like VMware or Parallels. Although VMware does have a leg up in performance, the idea of running Windows suddenly becomes a reality to run Windows inside a window. So having OS X as the desktop, or even Linux as the desktop, and then a virtual machine with the Windows operating system sitting inside it, keeping it completely safe, and if you screw something up, you can just reboot and not save the machine state, and you'd be as good as gold, if you will. I think I don't know if Apple will ever take over the world. Quite honestly, its practices are probably more monopolistic and closed than Microsoft's have been. Certainly, predatory to a large degree. Unfortunately, since Apple has virtually no market share, while it commands a very large mind share, market share will come. But right now, since it's the smaller end of the market, it's not going to get the tallest nail always gets pounded for viruses and spyware and all that crap. So until it grows bigger, it's not going to have a lot of the same issues that Microsoft certainly had over the years. Is it going to take over? Who knows? I doubt it. I think ultimately the operating system will become a layer, and then all the software that we play with now, we could run anywhere. I mean, having a Mac versus having a Dell versus having a HP. I keep naming those three brands just because they're the biggest ones out there that at least that I can see. Becomes less important as long as you have a gateway to get to the internet. You've got everything you need. More software is going to be moving online, making the idea of the operating system a lot less important than it is today, and it certainly used to be. Cool? I think.
Yeah, well, that's pretty cool. That's what I was wanting to know.
Cool. All right. Well, I'm happy to talk to you. So we're going to close this out, and I know it wasn't exactly 5 questions, but we had some long answers in there. Until next time, we'll see you later.
This phone call sponsored by GoDaddy.com. This phone call sponsored by GoDaddy.com. This phone call sponsored by GoDaddy.com.